G'day and welcome to the final episode of Wambam for the year 2000. On tonight's show we'll feature the two big races of the year. The State Championships at Dwellingup and the MTBA National Round, which attracted a huge crowd at the Goat Farm last month. Plus Derek and Mark give you some final tips to maintain your enthusiasm during the summer months. But first let's head into the Pines for all the action from the State Champs. It was the Fun Hogs in the Jules Fun who first took to the hill at this year's State Championships, and after a short practice session, the head-to-head racing action began. On a course that was definitely suited to the confident aerialists, the medal matchups were eventually decided between Jade McPherson and Matt Bondon, who claimed the bronze medal, while his brother Ben narrowly defeated Darryl Griffiths to take the title. Sunday's cross-country course was an unknown quantity, commencing with a single track uphill which led to a long fire road climb to the edge of the pine forest. A rewarding downhill followed before the riders took to the single track again as they began traversing back to the start-finish area. Finally got caught on video. Make it look nice. Of course, before reaching their goal, the competitors faced another tough uphill on part of an older course, which also produced an enjoyable downhill section. Just right. No man, take it to the other side. See the friends we have lost over there. At the end of the day, it was Southwest stalwart Gemma Basley who took victory in the Elite Women's Division, while Ian Longle managed back-to-back titles to complement his undefeated season.
So you've been watching the mountain biking show for the last few months now. Hopefully you've been doing a bit of riding as well. You may have come to the point where you want to spend some money on the bike, a few upgrades maybe. In today's episode we'll run you through a few possible upgrades for your mountain bike. The first upgrades you may want to consider are from a comfort point of view. These specifically relate to the contact areas of the bike, being the handlebars, the saddle and pedals. The latest trend in mountain biking would be something like these riser bars. These basically sit you in a higher riding position, therefore resulting in less stress on the lower back and the shoulders. They're also slightly wider than a normal bar as well, giving you more stability and control on the bike. Riser bars retail for somewhere between about $40 to $170. These can be combined with a shorter riser stem, grips, lots of different types available out there. Basically, you're looking for something nice and spongy and comfortable. These will absorb all the vibrations out of the ride. The next point of contact would be the saddle. Now, unfortunately, this is a little bit of trial and error, but you need to find something that's basically soft, a little bit flexible, maybe gel. This is a mountain bike Pacific one. It's got Kevlar on it. Means that you won't slide around on the bike, won't tear, and it'll dry after wet rides. The last point of contact would be the pedals. If you're using platforms or cheap plastic pedals at the moment, you may find it hard to keep your foot on the pedals. This will overcome that problem. They give you a lot more control of the bike. They do need to be combined with a pair of mountain bike Pacific shoes like this. These are a rigid shoe, so you get lots of power transfer and again more control over the bike. Some other componentry upgrades that you may wish to consider on your bicycle would be the forks, brakes and wheels. However, with these upgrades, it's most important to consider, is it worth doing it to your bike, or would it be more cost effective to purchase a new bike with these features already on? When upgrading your forks, the most important thing to consider is the actual type of riding that you're going to do. If you're doing downhilling or jumping or dual slalom riding, you might want to consider a set of double triple clamps. They've got lots of travel and they're also nice and strong. If you're doing cross-country riding and trail riding, you might want to consider a set of cross-country forks like these. These are much lighter, they don't have as much travel, therefore they still allow you to climb uphill with them. Once again, when upgrading wheels, the type of riding you do is most important. A downhill rider may be looking for something that's strong and heavy, maybe with a disc. Cross-country rider might be looking for something lightweight, maybe with radial lace spokes like in this wheel. One of the major upgrades people are considering at the moment are changes in disc brakes. The main reason for this is the increased stopping power and better efficiency in wet and muddy conditions. This is quite a costly upgrade because you will need to have your wheels rebuilt with disc-specific hubs, and then you will need to choose a downhill disc set or a cross-country disc set. And one last thing that everyone's probably wondering about, the competition, the Wambam competition. We've drawn those out, Paul and myself. First prize, the crank gloves, the RockShop cap, the CTR t-shirt. The winner of that is Kane Puthkaran. Second and third prize is the new Volatile Visions movie, and the winners of that are Clayton Locke and Claire Birtles. So if you guys want to pop down the shop, you can pick up your prizes. And enjoy your summer, and we'll see you on the trials for next winter. Goodbye.
National Series racing returned to WA for the first time in 5 years at the Goat Farm. An enthusiastic bunch took to the course in Saturday's cross country. After first tackling a short but deceptively difficult uphill, riders headed back down to follow the creek via some narrow single track. Then began the punishing climb to the top of the hill, which offered a spectacular view of the city, followed by a much-deserved downhill run. short uphills remain. However, the ensuing downhills maintained the riders' momentum as they headed towards the start-finish area. Sunday's downhill started at the top of Greenmount before eventually rejoining a slightly modified version of last year's state championship course. After negotiating the first rock drop-off, riders headed towards the first crowd of spectators awaiting some action at the remodelled log staircase. Shortly afterwards came the most difficult rock garden section, where the majority of spectators had gathered in the hope of seeing some carnage. From there, it was a relatively smooth, fast run to the finish line at the bottom of the hill.
Just after Sean's
Following a short lunch break, which gave some riders a chance to make minor repairs, the fastest riders had one more chance for victory in the top 20 shootout. Some incredibly fast and spectacular riding couldn't stop seasoned overseas racer John Waddell from posting the fastest time to claim overall victory. And with that ended the final race of the season.
Congratulations to the guys.
A reasonable crowd of competitors and spectators alike gathered by the Murray River banks for the observed trials event on Saturday afternoon. Though most expected the competition to be decided between last year's champion Derek Price and the flamboyant Brad Steggles Harris, the other competitors all showed marked levels of improvement in their riding. Despite an uncharacteristic fall by Derek, Brad wasn't able to maintain his composure, and the gold medal again went to the talented trickster. The buses began loading early on Monday morning, and once the details were entered into the timing computer, the downhill dash began in earnest. Woo! Commencing with the familiar pedally single track, the course eventually headed into the pine forest and some technical switchbacks. Below the second fire road, riders headed onto a brand new section of trail, which many have described as the best course ever raced in Western Australia. Consisting entirely of technical single track, the trails tested all aspects of the rider's ability.
Hey Sam.
Woo! Pedal, pedal, pedal. Before later arriving at a log jump which would test their fortitude.
Hey, Mick.
Extreme cycles,
Following the time runs, the crowd had a chance to relax before the announcement of the winners began.
Alright, so first the 3 on the second. Sean Watts, find a big improvement.
In the end, it was once again the 16-year-old Sam Hill and the dominant Sarah Booth who claimed the overall victory amongst a very friendly yet competitive group.
That's them.
If you've been watching the show over the last few months, you probably noticed a variance of bikes used for different disciplines in the racing. Today I'm going to take you through some of those bikes and show you the differences. Now, starting off with the trials bike, if you want to get into a bit of trials, ideally you want a small frame, mainly for clearance so you can throw the bike around. A rigid bike is good, you don't need the suspension, you sort of use your body to absorb it more, and being rigid you can throw it around a lot easier. Now, normally platform pedals are a good way to start because you can get off the bike if you need to bail out nice and quickly. Also a very small gearing, just the grainy gear on most bikes will do sufficiently, and a large aluminium bash ring to protect the bike so you can actually use the bottom bracket to climb up onto objects. Now with the brakes, I tend to go with the Magura hydraulic brakes. They are very powerful brakes and they grip on really well. A polished rim surface tends to suit the red trial specific pads and give you definitely adequate braking for trials. Also with the tyres, a slightly bigger tyre is good because of the cushioning effect that it can give you. You tend to run them at a slightly lower pressure than normal. It gives you better grip over rocks and logs and so forth. Now with the stem, the idea is to use a shorter downhill type of stem with a little bit of rise. Sort of helps you give it a bit more stability over the bike and be able to manoeuvre it around a little bit easier. Also the riser bars, nice wide bar, plenty of stability again. Okay, now the slalom bike, a little bit more of a high-speed bike, but the same sort of principles of being strong and quick. I still go for the platform pedals, I just prefer jumping with it, some people prefer clips. A larger chainring on the front, I run a 42 tooth chainring with a chain guide to hold it on. Basically because there's no set chain length that is movable, you do need a chain guide to hold it onto the single front chainring. I run an 8-speed cluster at the back, enough gears to basically conquer any jumps. Okay, this is what they call a hardtail bike. It has no suspension in the back, but I do run the suspension at the front. Suspension forks will help absorb the bumps when you're slalom or compressor racing. Really good on the BMX track as well, just to keep the traction of the front wheel on the ground to help you steer around the corners. The tyres again, using nice big chunky tyres, a little bit harder than the trials bike. The rolling speed is important when jumping, but everything else, big strong rims. Brake surface not so important, your brakes don't have to be as sensitive as on the trials bike, but a nice set of V-brakes do come in handy. Okay, because it is a sprint bike, it is good to have a slightly higher handlebar height than seat height. The handlebar run the higher downhill bars with a short stem like downhill. The seat you do run at a low height because you're never actually sitting down when you're racing. The ferry seat is an option. Now the downhill bikes, the big bikes of the sport, again they run the single chainring on the front. I run a 42 with a chain guide, again because of the variable chain length. I still go for the platform pedals on the downhill bike. I just prefer them because of all my other bikes, I'm sort of used to it. again with the 8-speed cluster on the back to give you plenty of speed for going downhill. Now these bikes do run front and rear suspension, up to, I think some of the bikes are only up to about 9 inches now, which is plenty of travel for a push bike. Again, big chunky tyres, wide rims, and on this bike it also runs disc brakes to allow the brakes to keep nice and cool at high speed. Okay, these are the 8-inch rated disc brakes, a little bit larger again for cooling for high speed use. Really accurate braking in all conditions. They're connected here to the boxer forks, which have a triple clamp assembly. It makes the forks a lot stiffer. High speed through rough objects, it still keeps your steering stability and allows you to get through nice and clean. We also still run short stem, riser bars, nice and wide, again designed for stability at high speed through rough objects. And also a slightly longer saddle. Again for cornering, you can use it on the inside of your thigh, hold onto the bike as well to keep it under control. For any mountain bike riding, a definite must is the protective gear. It's not cheap to start off, but you've got to use it if you want to keep your body in good condition. First, of course, is a good helmet. Normally an open face helmet used for trials riding or slalom racing, well ventilated, protects you from all sides. Also for trials, good pair of shin guards. If you don't wear them, the sharp pedals will rip your legs to pieces. Of course, gloves, you're always going to fall off, and the first thing you put down is your hands. Nice pair of gloves, protect your hands at all times. Now on top of that, for the downhill racing, a full face helmet is a definite must. You never know when you're going to come off, and it does happen really quickly. You need face protection, a definite must. Goggles, optional. On wet days or dusty days they do come in handy. Keeps everything out of your eyes. You definitely need to be able to see where you're going to stay on the bike. Last but certainly not least, we also have the Dionysi body armour. Protects your whole lower back, your elbows, your shoulders, everything. A definite must. Around $350 for a set of body armour, but a definite must if you're racing downhill. And also Dionysi knee shin guards, really good for downhill. They're well ventilated and they'll protect your legs in all conditions. Okay, now that I've shown you through all the machinery that we ride and the protective equipment that we use, I've got a little bit keen, so I'm going to go and do some riding. We'll see you next year.
Well, that's it for the last show of the season. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back again next year. Before we go, we've got the party.
Yep, next weekend, Saturday, November 25th at the Curtin Uni Tavern, starting from 8:30 p.m. It's the Wambam Slam, featuring some of the bands that you've heard on the show, plus it's going to be the presentation for the 2000 State Series champions.
So we've got the bands, we've got the presentation. The tickets are available at South Perth, at Bike Force in South Perth. See Derek there, or see Mark out at Nedland Cycles, Stirling Highway, Nedlands. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to all the people that have helped put Wambam together this year.
Now let's go out the way we started every month with the almighty Jed Whitey.